the folks who seem to have the longevity aren't always kind of comparing backwards. Instead, they're just sort of looking at where they are right now and like, well, this is pretty good. Where I am right now, look at what I'm doing. I was really chasing like a Boston qualifying time, mostly because it felt like I was supposed to. When I first started, like, social media was not really a thing. Like, Facebook had barely started, and I think the lack of pressure was phenomenal. Who was I comparing myself to? No one. I'm Amanda Brooks. I am the founder of RunToTheFinish, which is a website with thousands of running articles at this point. I started running myself back in 2002, and then full-time became a coach and a writer in 2012. So I have been doing this a long time now. And it's a lot of fun.
Okay, let's go to the story behind 2002, and then we'll go to the story behind 2012. Start with 2002. What led you to, I guess, quote unquote, becoming a runner?
Yeah, I grew up playing a lot of sports, but I honestly remember even playing softball and my parents being like, you just look so awkward when you run the bases. Like, stretch your legs out or something. And I'm tall. So, like, I just think maybe I didn't know how to, like, use my body. But, like, I was athletic, but running was not the thing. And in college, I had some friends that were going to do a road trip and run a half marathon. And I really wanted to go on this road trip. It never occurred to me that I could go without running and like cheer. That just never occurred to me. So I started running, and honestly, it was a fascinating sort of process, you know, in your 20s of like, I just sort of naturally did run walk. There wasn't websites, there wasn't social media. Like, I knew nothing, but I just kind of naturally did that. And I was so proud of myself. It didn't even take the race. It was just the actual training of like, oh my gosh, I did that. That thing was really hard. And like, I did that again. So it seems crazy to me that I'm like, oh, we're 23 years into this and I still have that same kind of feeling.
It's mad, isn't it? When you get started, you obviously get all of those sort of newbie gains, I guess. It's those moments that you're like, I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I could do that. But you're right in saying, in running, that always continues, like at whatever level you are, whether you're everyday runner, you're somebody that goes and races, you're somebody that just likes to do your local fun run, or you're an Olympic level athlete, you're always proving to yourself, oh my God, I didn't think I could do that.
Yeah, even just showing up day after day, year after year, like life changes, you've moved, all these different things. And so it is a fascinating thing. And I watch it as a coach too, where the folks who seem to have the longevity aren't always kind of comparing backwards. Instead, they're just sort of looking at where they are right now and like, well, this is pretty good. Where I am right now, look at what I'm doing.
And it's like, it's one of those things as well it's always there for you, which I was talking to somebody about the other day. It's like, no matter where you are in your life, like it's always there. Like you can always pop on your trainers and get out the door.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing. I mean, we say it's a cheap sport. It's kind of not become that anymore, but it is an easy sport in the sense of like you can keep it really simple and just move when you have time, where you have time, which is so true.
I think it's that accessibility for sure. So that was 2002 then, that half marathon that got you started. But in that 10-year period, obviously it became such a huge part of your life that it led you to 2012. How did that even happen?
Yeah, so I was actually like a digital consultant, and one of my friends at the time was into every new thing that came out. So this was when blogs very first started in 2005. It was kind of the first social media in a lot of ways because we were sort of posting, here's the run I did today. And I built this huge community. I would run challenges where 1,000 people would sign up. I charged nothing because no one charged for anything back then on the internet. And it just kind of kept growing. And I hit sort of a tipping point with myself of, man, I either want to like go all in and try this, or I need to stop because it's significant amounts of time out of my day. And I loved the coaching. I went to journalism school, so I loved the writing. And I just thought, we'll see what happens here. And, 13 years later, it's more of a business and a thing than I ever could have imagined in 2012. But it got off to a good start with just having already built kind of that community from being around there for 7+ years.
I often ask this with people that are in similar positions to you because like it obviously started as a passion project and something you did with some friends in the first instance. Now it is still a passion project in some ways, but also your life, your livelihood. Is it sometimes hard to keep those lines not from blurring, and like if maybe your personal running journey isn't going as well as your business running journey, is it hard not to hold the other one against each other?
It's an interesting thing. I think this last year was actually the first time I had to really get clear that Amanda Brooks is a different thing than Run to the Finish, because kind of for years they were intertwined. And honestly, people meet me and they're often like, oh, Run to the Finish, like they know that name, which is fine. I love it. But the business is growing. There are other people involved. There are other opinions involved, which is a first for me because it had just been me for so long. And it really was kind of an identity crisis almost, in a sense of like, man, I have to separate myself from this thing that has become a business and know that like, if I want to do something else, it's fine. I've done okay with it, even dealing with injuries over the years, I think. It didn't bother me for some reason. I think because I knew I was still learning and researching and writing and still helping other people. So I was kind of okay with it there. But now it is a little of like, well, who can I talk about things besides running?
Mm.
That would be okay. Like it's still my favorite thing to do, but I do other things.
Yeah, it's that thing that people say like running has become their entire personality, and
Mhm.
for a lot of us, our lives do revolve around it. But at the same time, I think it's very healthy, isn't it, to have those other interests and those other passions as well. Otherwise, it can become, I guess, just a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of folks, it is a little bit of a running becomes your passion, and then social media comes into play, and it does start to just kind of take on a life of its own and more time than you ever kind of thought you were going to put into it. And so it is important to keep coming back to the like, well, why am I running? Like,
Yeah.
what actually about this am I enjoying? Like, maybe I'm not enjoying it. Should I go ride a bike for a few months and make sure like I still want to be running? Like, I think that's been an interesting piece with social media, is people sometimes feeling that maybe they can't do other things because they've sort of said, well, I am a runner.
Yeah. And I think it's that extrinsic motivation as well, isn't it? Like, I'm doing this to get traction on social media.
Mm.
I've told this story on the podcast before, I think, but I once ran an ultra in Wales, where I'm from, and it was 75 miles. And about 50 miles in, I had the thought in my head. I was like, I need to finish this race because I'm going to get loads of likes on social media because of this. And when I thought that, I was like, I didn't in the moment, but after the fact, I was like, what are you doing? Like, if you're only doing it for that reason, it's the wrong thing to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember early on, like I said, in blogging, and that was kind of our social media. And I put immense pressure on myself to hit certain time goals because I had told the internet I was
Yeah.
going for these certain time goals. And it's kind of a funny because I'm so internally motivated. Like I don't really like that external pressure. And I finally personally realized that. And so I stopped sharing a lot of my goals. I don't share photos of my watch anymore. And I was like, I'm still hitting PRs in my 40s, but that's for me. Like, I don't care if the internet likes it or doesn't like it anymore. And man, does it take the pressure off and just keep running like way more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's that thing with Strava as well, and that sort of pressure that people, feel like they're under because their friends are watching, and you're like, you do know every single person is feeling this exact same thing, so you're not being judged, even though you think you might be. You're like, I promise you're not. And if they're judging you, they're a worse person than you are.
Right. They're not your friends. It's
Yeah,
actually one of
exactly.
the things I'll tell people who are either nervous to run outside or maybe nervous to go like lift weights at the gym. Most people are so focused on themselves, they do not care what you're doing. And then if you just reflect that back to yourself, when you're out for your run, when you're doing your workout, do you really care what other people are doing? Usually, no. Like you're focused on you.
Yeah, and it's that. I guess that's every facet of life, isn't it? As well, like
Mhm.
you always think that people care way more than they actually care, which is super interesting. I just want to go back to something you said a moment ago because I found it quite relatable, and I'm sure it's very relatable to people that are maybe going on a coaching journey for the first time as well. We were talking about kind of the difference between yourself and the brand, and now there being other people involved as well. And I think that is kind of relatable to people that are, taking on a coach for the first time and maybe have only ever done it themselves. That kind of trust in someone else, that can sometimes be really difficult. Is that something you felt with the brand? And is that something you see, I guess, when you're coaching as well to kind of build that trust in athletes?
Yeah, I think it is an interesting one because it does show up in so many different places. With athletes, in fact, one of the things I often say is that the hardest people to coach tend to be those that have been running for a very long time and not had a coach because we have a routine and we have a way that we've done things. And it almost takes a little convincing of like, well, I know you've always run 6 days a week, but I actually think you're going to get faster if we run less and I finally get you to do some strength training. And that really comes like with a lot of communication and with brand partners too, honestly, over the years, or even just other people in the business now, it is communication, man. Like it's so true. It's having like the honest conversations and it's also just kind of the well, here's why and like the reasoning behind things. And I think as a coach, that's something that doesn't always happen. A lot of the times it's just, here's the workout, do the workout, like, let's go. But I think having those conversations of, well, here's why I want to take a little bit out of your plan, or here's why, even though you're training for a marathon, I want you to do 5K speed work, helps kind of get everyone on the same page.
Those conversations, though, those honest conversations, they're so hard to have, aren't they? So hard.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for most people. I tend to maybe be overly honest and blunt, but mostly because I'm like, it just eliminates so many like miscommunications or assumptions on either side. And certainly, I think there's ways to go about those conversations, but it's just so beneficial in all of life.
What do you enjoy more, your own running journey and achievements and the road that you're on and will remain on, or your clients' journeys and achievements and the road they're on?
That's a good question. I mean, at this point, I run for me and my own
Okay.
kind of joy. So I don't know if I care so much about like milestones anymore. It is really exciting to work with someone and see them kind of achieve the thing that they just weren't sure if it was possible or that they set for themselves and just kind of maybe surprise themselves. Um, that is always really, really rewarding.
Did you have like a point in your life where running for joy became like, was that something you thought about? Was it like I'm ready just to enjoy it again now, or was it something that kind of just happened naturally?
Yeah, it was very much kind of going back to some of that early social stuff where I was sharing goals and I was really chasing like a Boston qualifying time, mostly because it felt like I was supposed to. And again, having very little information back then, 2007, 2009, like 2011, I wasn't fueling appropriately. I was reading magazines where these male athletes said things like, I suck on a peppermint. And so I was like, okay, like peppermints give you energy. So I wasn't like 60 grams of carbs an hour. No, nowhere near that. Um, and it really did suck all the joy out of running. A, because I was constantly failing. I didn't have enough information to do it correctly. Um, and so training didn't feel good. My body didn't feel good. And so that was kind of the point where I stepped back and thought, I love running. Like, I don't want to stop enjoying this. So something has to change. And initially, that change was kind of stepping away from racing. And then over the years, as I was able to learn a lot of things and treat my body better and feel better, racing kind of came back into the picture. But I was able to sort of keep it to that, like, it's great to go after a goal, but I like the process. I like training for itself. And that's a hard mindset for a lot of people to get into.
Yeah.
But oh man, what a victory if you can find yourself in the place of like, I like training.
When running becomes a thing that you just do, and I actually found this, like, I was never coached. I kind of ended up doing coming out. I used to play a lot of rugby, and I got an injury, and then I decided I want to go and do like long distance stuff, so Ironman and ultras and things like that. I never ran the shorter distances really. I just wanted to go and do them because they seemed hard, and I wanted to just go and complete them basically. And then I decided, like, when I wanted to try and get a bit quote unquote faster for me, I try and get a coach. And at that point, I realized, like, I'd only ever trained towards something, and I
Mhm.
actually only ever did it for this thing at the end. So, like, for that race. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago where I actually realized that I just like running. Like, I just want that to be something that I do. And I think when that is the realization of, you know, I know you've spoken on your socials about kind of the ordinary run or the normal run, like just the one that you go out and do. When you realize that, it can be quite freeing actually, because you're like, I don't really have to race. I don't really have to run these times. I just want to run because I like running.
Yeah, it's so fun for me, honestly, when I see people kind of have that moment because I think most folks are more motivationally driven by having the race on the calendar.
Yeah.
Like I've asked in a million different polls and the majority are like, "No, I need a race on the calendar." Um, but it does seem like there just gets a point where if you've stayed with it long enough, something kind of shifts and you do sort of have that moment of like, well, you know what? Even if there wasn't a race, I think I would still want to do this.
And it's when your day feels infinitely different as well. I think, like, there's that realization of, oh right, I don't feel as good today because I haven't done that thing, which
Yeah.
makes me feel good in the mornings.
Yep. And sometimes it honestly takes an injury or an illness for a lot of folks to have that realization,
Yeah.
which stinks, but it's true that that is often when it happens.
You mentioned fueling, obviously, with somebody that has your background in coaching as well. I'm sure you're going to come across these mistakes over and over and over again. Fueling being one of the major ones. Are there other things that I think we've mentioned strength work already as well. Are there other things though that you kind of see on that repetitive basis that people kind of do? It's hard to say wrong, but it's like either do because they've been taught in a different way, or maybe just don't do.
Yeah, I think unconsciously there are things that kind of like the fueling where a lot of folks get into this because of weight loss, which is fine. But then as they keep going, like kind of making that shift into, well, no, like my body actually needs this right now. How can I feel my best? So that certainly is a big one, but it also plays into other factors of kind of unconsciously overtraining. So if a little bit is good, then more is better. So whether that's just doing too much speed work or doing too many easy runs that aren't quite easy, Or I fell into this trap as well in like 2009 when, oh gosh, it was like T9 and P90X and all these things were like super popular. They were just more cardio. And I still see this happen a lot where people are like, no, I go to the gym and I do these HIIT classes. And there's nothing wrong with HIIT classes, but if you're running 5 days a week and then your only strength is actually a cardio class, you're mostly doing more cardio. And so getting folks to kind of actually look at their week and say, well, how much of what I'm doing is actually like easy? How much is hard? How much is cardio? How much is actually strength training? So just picking up weights, not trying to get my heart rate up and doing burpees alongside my weights.
Do you get a lot of pushback when you try and point things like that out?
Not as much anymore. I feel like it took quite a while to get a lot of folks strength training. I mean, even myself included, like I just wanted to run. Why would I spend time strength training? In fact, I did an interview with Ryan Hall way back in the day where he was like, no, I don't strength train. That's not going to make me a better runner. And of course, now he's massive and bulked up and lifts all the time. So I think most people now feel like, okay, I know I need to strength train. It's often a little more of like, but how the heck do I fit that into my week? And what if it makes me too sore to run? So it's more a nervousness around adding something new, doing something different.
This might be a bit of a strange question, and it's kind of putting you on the spot a little bit. But is there something from, let's say, back when you first discovered running? Because I like thinking of this almost as two eras, right? Like when you first discovered running, is there something from then that you'd kind of put in today's running sphere, and from today's running sphere that you take back and put there when you started?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, like social media was not really a thing. Like Facebook had barely started. And I think the lack of pressure was phenomenal. Who was I comparing myself to? No one. I knew a couple friends who ran and I was going to do a race with them. So I think that lack of pressure was incredible. And even the lack of spending, honestly. I mean, I had a basic Timex watch and I wore cotton t-shirts and mesh basketball shorts. So it really felt easy. Um, in retrospect, I would also take some of the wicking dry fit things and put them back there. That would have been a lot more comfortable. Better shoes would have been a lot more comfortable.
It is strange to see kind of the explosion of what the industry we're in, right? Like the last couple of years, particularly since COVID, things seem to have taken a real step forward and gone completely mad. Have you seen that as a coach and also somebody online as well?
Yes. So my book actually came out like 2 days before everything shut down, which was fascinating. And it was great in the sense that a lot of people did take up running. I had to hire a bunch of coaches at the time to add to the team. And I have seen that continue. I think even now that people have access back to the gym and other things, the interest in running is still growing. And I do think it's because we're seeing more paces, more body types, more races that look just fun and enjoyable that is kind of exciting people to try this.
Mm. And I think as well, like COVID was such a strange time because for so many people, obviously it was different right around the world, but for so many people in the UK, it was like you allowed out for an hour a day. Like, how can you make the most of that hour, basically? And I think so many people picked up in that time. So many people made so many mistakes in that time as well. And I think we're just getting to a point now where things are kind of leveling out. Like for those people that have just got into running in COVID a few years ago, and now because of that leveling out, there's this kind of secondary explosion of people now getting into the sport as well, which which feels amazing. And I really hope that that kind of goes from the everyday runner all the way to the elite side of things in terms of spectatorship and viewing figures and stuff like that. Because I feel like that's something that, as an elite sport, running doesn't really have, like football or American football or rugby. It's kind of a bit different in that way.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things with like the marathon majors. And I mean, what London had over a million
Yeah,
applications, I think, this
1.2,
time around.
insane,
So,
man,
like,
insane.
yeah, I love that the majors bring attention to it. I love that they get people excited, but I really want to see people try other races. There are so many really either beautiful or interesting or fast, if that's what you're looking for, race experiences that are actually significantly less stressful than doing a
Yeah.
marathon major. Because I think most people don't realize between the travel and 50,000 other runners on the course, it can feel very crowded. There's a lot going on. Getting to the start line is usually a very long ordeal and a lot of time at the start. So they are fun and interesting, but there are so many others. And especially based on people's goals, if they are going for a PR, a lot of others are going to be a better opportunity. And I think if we can keep kind of raising some of those other races up, that will keep helping get more spectators out. Because usually, whatever hometown, people do come out, they're interested to see it. So that's one of the things I really would like to see happen.
And you just hope that those 1.2 million people that entered, that's over 1.1 million people that aren't going to get into London, which, when you say it like that, is unbelievable. Where I live, about 2 hours up the road, I live not too far from Manchester. So this year in the UK, it was the same day. So Manchester Marathon
Mm.
and London Marathon were on the same day. It was 80,000 people across the UK running a marathon just across those two. And you're thinking, like, well, if 1.1 extra million people could be running next year, you're like, you could have a major marathon in every city, couldn't you?
Yes. Yes.
It's
And it
mad.
is interesting because I do see that on the coaching side that there are a lot of people who apply, and if they don't get in, then they just don't
That's
do
it.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so and I know, like, honestly, the marathon is a lot of work. So you need something that excites you and makes you want to get out the door. So I get that. But I'm like, oh, there's so many people missing out on a really incredible experience just because it wasn't that one specific location.
And location is an interesting topic as well, because, you know, you talk about the majors. Actually, I've only ever done London, but in terms of the majors, actually, when you go to these places, um, and it is a major weekend like London, it's very different than going to London in a normal setting. It's like people think, I'll travel to all of these places and do the majors and I'll have an amazing time. Well, you're like, we, if I'm being totally honest, you probably shouldn't have an amazing time, because you probably shouldn't walk around the day before. You're not going to be able to walk around the day after. So it's like you're pretty much going to be in and out, and you're not really going to see anything. So if you're doing it for that, it's probably the wrong reason to be doing it.
It is a much different experience, and I feel like I
Yeah.
have this fight with athletes a lot of they're like, "Well, I'm just gonna do the hop on, hop off bus tour." And I'm like, "Okay." And then it ends up, well, there was also a shakeout run, and then I went to the
Yeah.
expo, and so I'm like, "Okay, so you were on your feet for 5
25,000
hours."
steps later. you're like, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And then they come to you on Monday and they're like, why didn't I PR? And you're like,
Yeah.
let me just try and work this out. So yeah, and I think, like, the locations of some of these other races are unbelievable as well. You know, that you could you could throw a dart and there would be some race somewhere. Have you got places that you've been that kind of really stick out to you, and maybe races you've done for that kind of location feel?
Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, gosh, running new places is probably one of my favorite things. Around the US, Bayshore is in Michigan, and it's easy, like easy to get in, easy to get out, like very pretty. You can still have a lovely like weekend there. Um, Miami is an interesting one because it's so flat. It's a decent sized race at this point, and it's in January, which excites a lot of people, except if you don't live in the South and you've been training through winter and then you go to Miami, it's actually fairly hard. It's hot and humid. Um, but it's an interesting one. I really and truly think like you can't find a race almost anywhere. So I have personally kind of looked at the map and thought like, well, what's a good time frame and where would I like to vacation? And then if you can get in the day before, get your bib, run your race, and then yeah, I'll put on my compression tights and walk around. I haven't taken an international flight, which also takes a lot out of you. So you can do a lot more. I, at this point, am just a fan of running new places, even if I don't
Yeah.
do a race. So, I mean, Iceland was incredible. Ireland's an incredible place to run. I could kind of go on with the list. I
Yeah,
think they're all interesting.
the list could just go on forever. It's the one thing that we don't have in the UK. I mean, there's obviously loads of different sort of counties and places to run, but obviously the US is so vast. Like I paced a friend of mine at Moab a couple of years ago, and I was like, I'm on a different planet. Like
Yeah.
this is not the same place. This. How can this be the same country as New York and Boston? Like I couldn't quite comprehend it. It's just
Yeah.
so strange how vast it is to me.
Yeah. Oh, Moab is one of my favorites. It's like a 5-ish hour drive for us. So we probably
Yeah,
go
I did
spend
that drive.
some time there every year. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, from Denver down through there, and I mean, just looking, just driving through the canyons and things like that. Yeah, it's an unbelievable place, and it just kind of blows your mind a little bit, doesn't it? But I think that kind of brings us back to the running in locations. Without running, I would never have been able to say yes to that opportunity, and there's no reason for me to have ever gone to Moab, ever. Like I wouldn't have gone there. So like it's again that running is there for you to kind of help you through your life and experience new things, which yeah, it's just such a cool thing to have. And I feel like when I'm talking to someone like you that's obviously so passionate about running as well, it's really nice to feel kind of that reciprocal love, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's fun. Honestly, just talking to other runners is always like fun when they're
Yeah.
really like in it and excited about it. Every once in a while you get someone who hates it that's still doing it, but
Yeah.
most of us like we're enjoying it and it's fascinating. Even talking to people at the start line of a race. I was doing a random local 5K this winter, and the guy next to me was asking about the super shoes I was testing. And he's a former Olympian, former like 220 marathoner, and he's in his 70s, still out there cranking away. Like it's fascinating who you meet.
Where are you? Where are you with your personal running journey now? Then, obviously, I know you said you're doing it to enjoy it, but there's kind of a trail running element to things at the moment. I know, and I was on your social before, and you were telling everybody you're rubbish at it. Like, it must be. But again, like it's quite cool that how can you still be rubbish at something when you've been doing it for X amount of time, but there are still these little nuances on there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I didn't start trails till we moved out here to Colorado 7 or 8 years ago. And I love road running because I can zone out and think. So I don't do trails all the time, but at least once a week. And then I had an injury that started about 18 months ago, and I was controlling every variable. So no hills, less trails, because anything that might kind of cause it to flare up. So when I kind of got back to them recently, I realized my brain was sort of like, oh my gosh, pick up your feet, pick up your feet, pick up your feet. Yeah. And it just gave me that moment of like, God, you're bad at this. And I mean, I got over it pretty quickly because I was like, well, that's okay. Like, I'm enjoying it. I'm out here. And I know, as with anything, like, even just in like the few weeks of getting back out there, I started like reacclimating and remembering to pick up my feet and going a little faster. And I mean, this weekend I almost took an epic dive because I caught my foot on a rock, but I ended up like, flailing out of it and going on. And I was like, well, that's okay. It's still pretty. I'm still alive. So I do think it's important for us to like, whether you want to do trails or ride your bike or swim and you're bad at it, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, really and truly, who cares?
I genuinely love that message. Like, who cares? Like, it literally doesn't matter whether you have a bad run or a bad experience or a bad race or something hasn't gone to plan. Like, genuinely, it doesn't matter. Like, people literally don't care. And as we've already alluded to, if they do care, they're not your friends. They're not somebody that you want to be associating yourself with, really.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I live in Boulder, there are a lot of very fast people here. There are a lot of
Yes, quite
Olympians
a lot.
here. So it
Yes.
is also easy to feel like you're not doing enough or not like good at something because someone comes blazing by you. But that's okay. I'm also not them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just keeps coming back to the why are we out here? Why are we doing this?
Just a couple more because I do want to touch on the injury briefly. Um, are you a good pupil? Do you listen to yourself, or are you somebody that kind of just wants to push and get back?
Yeah, no, I am an excellent and I am rarely, rarely injured, which is because I will do all the things. Like I had
Okay.
IT band once in 2007. I still do the physical therapy moves I learned in 2007.
I love that.
Uh, yeah, so this has been an interesting one. And I think a lot of it comes down to age and hormonal shifts and things that like we just don't entirely know how to address. So I've been learning a lot on that journey. And yep, I'll do if the in fact the physical therapist has gotten to the point where they're like, okay, are you still doing the previous 5 things I told you to do? And I'm yes. And they're like, okay,
Yes.
well, stop doing those because now I've given you like 90 minutes worth of stuff. And I'm like, well, I will do whatever you tell me to do because I want this to go away.
Literally finishing a physio appointment, starting your exercises, and then going back to the next physio appointment.
Pretty
It's
much.
taking so long, literally. I think that's such an important thing to talk about, though, as well, isn't it? Like things like changing in hormones and with age and how the body changes, because it's not just things that you can control. It's things that are out of your control that then, if you address them, can be controllables. And I think when it becomes um, something like a hormonal imbalance or a change in hormones, it's just kind of shifting your mindset towards, well, what can I now do to move forward with this?
Yeah, I think all of us as we're getting older, I mean, I started in my 20s. So, like,
Yeah.
obviously, my body is different in my 40s. And I think it's just having the shift of like, different isn't bad. Like I'm still setting some PRs. So there's still a lot I can do, but training may need to look different. I may need different recovery, or maybe I actually do better now on 4 days of running and 1 day of doing some other kind of cross training. And it is hard because we like our routines and, well, I've always done this and it's always worked. So it does. It's a mental shift. And then it's also just asking for help, which is hard for a lot of us too. But saying, like, something is not right. It doesn't feel right. I don't know exactly what it is, but somebody smarter than me or somebody help me. And combining that with paying attention, because I love that as runners, we're really in tune to our bodies. So we know that like this thing doesn't feel right or I don't feel right. So even if someone else is like, I think you're fine, but you're like, but I don't feel fine. Like So keep asking, keep looking. I do think that's a really important point for a lot of people.
And it's not ignoring, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people kind of fall foul to that. They're like on a run, or they're extra tired after a session, or, things aren't quite feeling right. But you're like, nah, I'll be all right. I'll tough it out. Like, that's such a runner mentality sometimes, isn't it? Like, oh, it's going to hurt. Particularly, I think when you've been training for a little bit, you're like, I understand that things hurt sometimes, but actually that can be a real detriment to you if you kind of let that go.
It is like a catch-22, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to a little bit get used to, like, it's inherently uncomfortable, and if you're training and pushing yourself differently, there's discomfort. So you do mentally sort of just get used to it, and then have to, like, find this point of being like, "Well, this is more than normal," or "This isn't going away," or knowing when, like, it's turning from discomfort into something else. It's a very hard process because we have trained ourselves to kind of ignore some things so that we can run long distances.
We'll finish with this because I'm sure there are people listening to this that maybe are at the beginning of their running journey. They're back where you were in 2002. What would be, if you could pick one bit of advice to give them? I know that's a huge question, but like, is there something that you would say to them to kind of move forward in their running journey?
Yeah, I think taking the pressure off. So a lot of times I see that as the goal becomes like, I need to run this whole race. Like, I don't want to walk at all. And surprise, there are folks who Boston qualify using the run walk method because it works. And I think just sometimes taking these weird little constraints we put on ourselves of like, I can't walk at all, or I have to hit this exact pace, and instead kind of just going back to like, okay, if I'm starting to get like really out of breath, or my heart rate is like really, really high, well, maybe I'll walk for 2 minutes and then I'll start running again. And it is a fascinating thing. Again, we just kind of have these mindsets of what it's supposed to look like, but there is no supposed to look like. It's just this thing we've created in our head.